When our core wounds meet the physical world, it offers us the opportunity to heal from the trauma and the emotional wear and tear we have endured in this lifetime. How many core wounds are there to heal? In this podcast series, we will talk about them all, healing the emotional core wounding, including the mother wound, the primal wound, so we can walk in our medicine to be the healers that we all are. Join podcast host, confidence coach Susan Axelrod with her very special guest, Kornelia Stephanie. This podcast is one for the ages, living beyond the core wounds.
Hello, friends. I'm so happy to be here today. In the green room just now, I said to my friend Kornelia, I love this podcast. To be honest, I listen to the episodes myself. I believe we have 18 of them. I refer my own clients to this podcast, Living Beyond the Core Wounds. Do you know what the core wounds are? Are you aware when they're showing themselves? Did you know you can clear the energy fields, as we've learned here from Kornelia? Today, we have an interesting episode. We are going to be talking about respecting boundaries. So, respecting my boundaries just now before Kornelia said to me, are you comfortable sharing why we're having this conversation? And I said, thank you for asking. Yes, I am. So this topic came up because I was telling Kornelia in one of countless conversations that my daughters have become good at setting boundaries, and I have become good at respecting them. There's so much to be said on this topic, and I'm delighted to bring in Kornelia for us to have this conversation. Hi, friend. Good to see you.
Hi. I just love so much what you're talking about, that your daughters have become good at setting boundaries and that you have become good at respecting them. I mean, I just want to melt. I just want to melt when I hear that. I just want to melt because your daughters have become good at setting boundaries and you have become good at respecting them. When I hear that, this is the ultimate form of honor and respect of, I want to say the mother, because it would have been nice if our mothers would have known how to been really good at setting boundaries, right?
It would indeed, Kornelia. So to reveal deeper, because, we're here to share our experiences and what we've learned. I'm still laughing at this. Only recently, my sister and I were having a conversation about our mother, Terry, our very beloved mother who's gone now. Mom was not really that good at respecting our boundaries. So yes, Kornelia, you're right. What would it have been like for in our generation and up to have our boundaries respected? And I think that's why this conversation is important.
That's why I want to do this to you.
Thank you.
I want to do this.
Down.
Yes, bowing down, because, the fact that you have become really good at respecting your daughter's boundaries, you're not walking around with a chip on your shoulder saying, oh, they should respect mine. I'm the elder here and whatever the thing. No, it takes a very special person that isn't taking things personal, and that really, really cares about the values of what your daughters are asking of you. And, so that's what I mean. I just want to, bow down to you for doing that. And that's why when you mentioned to me, I've become really good at respecting my daughter's boundaries, that's when I chimed back in and I said, oh my God, that is so good. That is so good.
Yeah, this is very interesting. It came to me. We've never done this, but we're going to have this entire conversation, Kornelia. And still in all, I just sat here saying, oh gosh, I wonder if Rebecca and Sarah, our daughters, if they feel that I respect their boundaries. So I'm going to park that over there in the parking lot for a little while, because really this is more about me. I think let's talk about this. I just want to say, I wonder if this is more about me and the fact that I feel I'm respecting their boundaries. And frankly, Kornelia, as you also know in our private conversations, I've said to you, they've gotten really good at setting boundaries. So I'm going to park over there a little bit for now to be like, do they agree with me? Because this isn't about them. This is about this conversation and how somebody does set boundaries for themselves and how we respect them, right?
Yeah, but let's talk about the contrast. Let's talk about the opposite, because what was it like before your daughters were not good at setting boundaries?
Oh,
Or
okay.
what was it like before your daughters felt safe in the relationship to even set the boundary, knowing that there was a risk involved? If I set this boundary, will my mother still love me? If I set this boundary, will my mother still like me? Will she still call me? Will, whatever the thing is, it's like, so what was the contrast like before? You said my daughters have gotten good at setting boundaries. Well, that had to do with a growing, evolving relationship between the three of you.
It's true. This is a very interesting thing. And because in part they got good at setting boundaries because frankly, in my nuclear family, my family of origin, okay, so maybe we were a little boundaryless. Okay, so maybe we overshared information. Okay, so maybe we overgave very strong opinions that nobody asked for. Okay, so maybe, we were all in, all there, all that, all the time, which is also a blessing. I want to acknowledge it's lovely to have a family who cares about you. But if I see it through this lens, now, and you said, what was the contrast? Then you used the key word, which is safe. So the contrast might have been something like that I'm going to speak only for myself, not for my husband. This is about me, that I might have had expectations that they do something a certain way, that they show up a certain way, that they say things a certain way, that that things go a certain way. And kind of no matter what, this is my expectation. And, it's boundaryless. I'm imposing myself on you. I need to acknowledge that my daughters are grown women and they have been for quite some time. So these are not children. They're fully grown, self-supported, independent women and have been for a decade or more. So that was, guess we want to say that out loud. And over this time, the contrast that you asked about, what was it like before, would have been more like this imposing, this constant imposition. And then also I want to bring in what you said before, which was, not taking it personally. So that the contrast in the before time would have been like, I might have taken it personally. And now we come back to here of the respecting the boundaries, where Rebecca, I'm just going to say it right out in public. Rebecca has said these words to me, Mom, this isn't about you. And I'd be like, oh crap. Oh, it's not? You mean everything? What do you mean it's not about me? I mean, come on, So yeah, that's how it would have gone. That would have been the contrast in the time before.
Yeah. And it's so good to say that. And I just want to say, since, I know you and I know your tools and I know what you use. I mean, I've known you in your practice of using Don Miguel's tools of do not take anything personally.
Right, the 4 agreements.
Practice, yeah, the 4 agreements. I know you were in the process of practicing that, but it's not just that, right? It's about how even when we are, let's say, old people pleasers, and we want to please in order to get approval. Again, it's like getting that approval. We want to please someone. We want to please our family. We want to please in order to gain approval, in order to gain acceptance. And when we're setting boundaries, I think is such a healthy thing. It's such a healthy self-love thing that's the reason it makes me want to melt, because that I'm always like thinking about, like, my shtick is always like the world, right? I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about the world, the mother and the family lineages, and what we're doing now, and what we've healed in our past, and what we're doing now in order to set up our next generation in a much better way. And if you are talking about your daughters are getting really good at setting boundaries, those are the future leaders of our planet that are really good at self-care and really good at communicating to other people what their boundaries are, what her boundaries are. Like, no, this is what it is for me. No, please respect that. And the fact that you, as far as the mother in the family, can actually handle, it's true that you can actually handle your daughter saying to you, no, mom, it's not about you. This is about me. And that you're going, oh, that you can actually handle it. I think this is so big.
Yeah, it is. I want to just repeat, I've got my notes going, me with my pen and my notes from our conversations. I want to really just repeat what you said. Why are we having this conversation? Why is this important? What about setting boundaries and respecting boundaries, learning this skill is important, and especially for our young people, because they are the future leaders of the planet. And as the leaders of the planet in the next day, they are good at self-care and they are clear on their boundaries, which is like so beautiful, that because you could even feel the energy of just like you said before, the contrast where there's all this overflowing of angst and, stuff, and, that's not clear, and it's not healthy, and it's not clear and healthy for the self, which needs to be in good order to lead, right? That really bore repeating. So important.
Yeah. And it's everything you said. And in addition, I just want to say that, the way that you and your daughters are doing relationship is that, again, you are a very special person, Susan, because you've done so much inner work, that you've done so much healing. But really, they are teaching you, training you,
Yes.
right? They're teaching you, training you what isn't acceptable for them. And, I always say it starts at home, because if you can't communicate your boundaries at home, if you can't communicate them at home, then, what you're doing on the microcosm is going to be, expressed on the macrocosm. Everything starts at home. And the fact that your daughters are communicating their boundaries so good at home, not saying that they're living with you, but they're communicating within the family unit.
Right.
To where originally, when they first grew up, they didn't grow up with being really good at their boundaries. They didn't have that as a role model.
Right. I went to reach for my book, the Don Miguel Ruiz book that you mentioned, The Four Agreements. You can see all of my notes in my tabs, and it really is such a great tool for this. And as soon as I said it, you invoked it. Rebecca said to me, "Mom, this isn't about you," and you immediately went to, "Don't take anything personally." And then the first agreement, of course, is be impeccable with your word, which is what you're really saying, that these young women, despite, what that contrast was that we talked about earlier, in other words, how they were brought up, what their upbringing, what they were exposed to, figured some things out. and became sort of impeccable with their word to me and became clear. And this is absolutely vital. You said that getting approval in order to gain acceptance, sometimes we don't set boundaries because we, or want to, we need the approval of the parent, we need the acceptance of the parent or the family unit. So therefore we're soft in the area of personal boundaries, right?
Yeah.
But that they came to this place of core selfness.
Yeah.
And then to be kind of impeccable with their word, do the inner work themselves to say basically to themselves first, this is what I need for me. Hello? This is what I need for me. And then to create that existence and therefore set that boundary without, to your point, which I thank you very much for your kind words, that they wouldn't worry that I would be mad at them, right?
Yep.
I would be mad at them.
Exactly. Or withholding love, because I don't know about you, but I know that was not something that I grew up in. If I would have been communicating boundaries back to my mother back in the day, love would have been withheld. Love would have been withheld. Approval would have been withheld, because who do I think I am? And it was really that energy. But again, look at what the fact that your daughters are communicating boundaries to you. And if they can say it to the mother, and if they can say it to the father, they can communicate boundaries to the mother and the father at home where it needs to begin. That's really would have been nice if they would have gotten that training from the time that they were children, and they didn't. And here we are. And now they're getting their training. You're getting your training. The training is happening anyway, but I think it's so beautiful the way it's happening, which is why I think it's so awesome that we're talking about it. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about respect of someone's line in the sand, respect of someone's boundary. We're talking about that, and having respect for a person's need and what it is that is important to them, their value. It's the same thing if you are setting a boundary for yourself. You're doing the boundary for yourself, and you're putting the line in the sand, and you're saying, here's the line in the sand. This is absolutely, you cannot cross this line. You absolutely cannot come over. You absolutely cannot do this if you're doing this towards yourself, with yourself. But they're communicating their boundaries to you. So it's really a beautiful thing. And through that, they're becoming a stronger, much stronger, empowered woman.
Yeah. By understanding what boundaries are, their rules, limits, or guidelines, for yourself, and that basically you set for other people, right? These are my limits. These are my guidelines. No, I don't answer the phone every day just because you call. Let's call it out. What are some of the—
no kidding. That's so good.
Exactly. What are some of the boundaries? I have to be careful because I still see them sitting over in the parking lot where I put them before, be like, oh crap, I wonder what they would think about this. But, that would be, maybe a boundary in my day. I spoke with mom every day. Oh, go ahead. You had a thought.
Yeah, I actually had one. I actually had something that actually occurred to me this week with the Easter weekend. So I was helping my parents filling out some documents for their insurance company. And we had made an appointment for Sunday to do it on Sunday. We talked about putting a couple hours in. Yeah, it's Easter Sunday, and that's fine. I knew it was fine with me. So I had said to them, listen, I communicated the boundary, Susan. Guess what? I communicated the boundary, but I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I didn't get met. Watch it. Okay. So I communicated, and I said, okay, you guys want to do it on Sunday? Yeah. Okay. So we agreed. Okay. And then I communicated my boundary, and I said, the only thing I ask is that when I come on Sunday, that I don't want to be here when there's other people here visiting. So if you want to visit with your family and your friends on Sunday, please feel free to go ahead, and we'll reschedule this work part for another day, simply because I would much rather be doing something else than to be sitting and listening to the family and other people visiting with you. I don't want to be part of that, right?
Right.
So those were my boundaries. I'll come over and do the documents, right? I'll come over and do that, and then we can go out for dinner or whatever. When I got there, the house was full of people.
Wow.
The house was full of people. So, and again, you know what I attribute that to? I attribute that to my lineage, my family not knowing how to communicate their boundaries. Because had my parents been strong in their boundaries, they would have been able to say, my daughter is coming over and she's helping us, and she's taking the time out of her busy schedule to help us. And so we set this time aside. We can visit for a little bit, but we won't be able to hang out that long or whatever. When she gets here, we need to close this out. Okay.
Right. That's like obvious. Like, yeah, that would be clearly respecting the boundary.
But when people don't know how to say no, when they feel like they're going to hurt somebody else's feelings,
right?
When they're people pleasing, when they feel like they owe people something because, oh, you came over here and now I'm telling you can't be here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this happened to me this week.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's interesting. So basically, what do you do when your boundaries aren't respected?
Yeah. So basically, I had a choice that day. I had a choice that I could have left, and I could have left because, okay, I came here to do the paperwork. We're obviously not going to get it done. And so I could have left. But notice I'm talking to you about it because I was recognizing all of it.
Yes.
And recognizing all of it, I was making a choice in the moment in all of it. I'm gracing. I'm giving grace here. I'm giving grace here. I could have left. And at the same time, it's like, oh, let it go. It's not that big of a deal. Let it go. Just
so that is an option. So one option, what do you do when your boundaries aren't respected? You might give grace and say to yourself, you know what? This time I'm going to let it go because that doesn't prevail over that per se. An option might have been that you exhibit anger and be like, hello, we talked about this. I came over here. I have this paper, we have to do this paperwork for you, not me. You could have exhibited anger. You could have stomped out or whatever. So
I could have been angry, but I really chose not to because if I was going to be angry, that was going to ruin my day. And that was also a choice. I was literally very clear, very like, okay, no, like it was really in the moment. Like, nope, I'm not going to. These kids, I'm looking at them as my kids. These kids don't know they don't know how to communicate the boundaries. It's because of their upbringing and their training and whatever. And, and that's okay. That goes back a long way because they're my parents.
Right.
And I'm going to let it go this time. And I did. And then I still chose to go out for dinner with them. We still went out and I just let it go. And I knew that I was going to make another date with them. And I did. And so I told you we did that today and we got a lot done.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. So it's very interesting. One of the things I did do some research about boundary setting in various, ways. I started, Googling it and then researching articles, and there's quite obviously a lot written about it. And one of the basic reasons for learning to set value. This is a skill. This can be taught. Learning to set boundaries, setting boundaries, holding your boundaries is to have what? Healthy relationships. Such that, let's go back to me and my daughters. I don't really know what the big deal is, but, maybe if I called, maybe if I said, hey, I need to hear from you once a week, or I need to hear from you in this way, or maybe a little what about me-ish, I'm not sure. And then, like you said, there might be a worry on their part. Well, if I set a boundary, maybe mom will be mad at me, or like you said, withhold love. But the other side is me, from my side, just making a choice. Like, this is weird. I'm going to be honest, like Kornelia, I'm just going to say it out loud. I'm just going to totally say this. Along these years of time, that this has been coming up and evolving, growing to a what I feel is a healthy place today. I'm like, this is weird. Like in my world, if mom called, you answer, pretty much. Or, if mom is in town, you're visiting. Like if my sister would come into town, even though I lived close to my mother, not in the same place, it's like, oh yeah, I have to see mom.
Yeah.
That's not a question. You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting, but really underlying this is healthy relationships. Now, this choice that you made to give grace based on your values, having good relationship with your parents, you said it was in consciousness, it was in awareness that you decided to make a choice, this choice for this, and then you respected your own choice.
Yes.
You didn't like self-hate later.
No. And see, I you mentioned the word relationships, and I always say that the most important relationship that you have is the relationship you have with yourself. And if you have that relationship in love, honor, and respect, even when you have to draw a boundary to your own inner well-being, like for instance, sometimes we have to, this is when I had flipped that program where the thoughts that we think, out of the thoughts that we think, if we're thinking negative thoughts about ourselves, we're going to repeat that negative thought process again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because that's how it works. And we think between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and a lot of those thoughts are repetitive. So until you start retraining your subconscious mind and really making those subconscious thoughts, what are those thoughts? So here's where I drew the line in the sand for myself. That was back in 2018 when I noticed that no matter what I was doing, showing up in the relationship for myself, showing up big, showing up, doing all the things that I had that negative thought pattern that was still happening, of judgment towards myself, towards myself. And when I saw that, when I saw it, I said, you're still judging yourself, even though you're doing all these great things, but you're still judging yourself. So that is when I drew a boundary for the self, for my mental self. And that boundary was drawn in the sand. That line was put in the sand. And it was very, very clear that from that day forward, I said, I absolutely refuse to judge you anymore. I absolutely refuse it. I refuse it. And by me making that statement, drawing that boundary, like, I'm not going to judge you anymore, every time when that mental pattern would come up, because it would come up to test you to see, are you going to judge yourself? Are you going to do it? When that came up, I said, remember, there's the boundary. You can't. You refuse. I refuse it. I will not judge you. I will love you. That had to be the boundary. And by me having that relationship with myself, I can then extend that to the people that are close to me in my life and other people in who I relate with, because of how you treat yourself is how you treat others. So the fact that your daughters are getting good at setting boundaries, that means they're getting good at that self-care. They're getting good at listening to what it is that they need and communicating that to other people.
Yes. This is so good. How you treat yourself is how you treat others. So something is coming up. First of all, now I don't want to talk about this, but I am just going to say, like, now I'm like, oh, And now they're setting boundaries with my other family members, right? But we're not going to go there. But
No.
I do want to say, how much do we love these young women? I happen to have daughters, right? How much do we love these young women who appear to be setting healthy boundaries for themselves so they can be more comfortable in their own skin? Maybe I don't need to talk to mom every day. Maybe I don't need her to visit me. Maybe I don't need her, to be here. Maybe I need my space to handle whatever I'm handling, or some such thing as this. But how much do we love that they would become mature women in relationships where they're not completely, utterly, totally overtaken by the boundaryless circumstance of an imposing spouse?
That's
partner.
why having you say the words, I'm getting good at respecting boundaries. This is music. It's music. It's so good, Susan. It's like, I think all the angels in all the land, everyone is rejoicing hearing those words. Really.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. It's respecting boundaries. It can, what is respect? It has value. It has worth. It has honor. And when you're offering that, and what do we all want? We want to be honored. We want to be heard. We want to be respected. And where does it start? It starts with you. It starts with you. So the fact that you're getting good at respecting the boundaries, not taking it personal, is a really good thing.
Yeah. And thank you so much. This is such a good conversation. Like you said, I'm getting good at respecting the boundaries, not taking it personally. And especially if we say out loud, what if my daughter, one or the other daughter, is growing more comfortable in her own skin, in her own existence, personal strength deepening inside, because there's now boundaries that are set, and I don't have to do that, be that, say that, etc. Right? Just because somebody else expects it or imposes it or whatever. There's such a sense of selfness here. But I wrote it a few times, feeling comfortable in your skin. Sometimes if our boundaries aren't respected, and we're not even talking about the physical, obviously, we don't even have to go to that extent. But if the boundaries aren't respected, then it feels uncomfortable. This is expected of me. And I don't want to do that. I'm not comfortable doing that. That's not good for me. That's not better for me. That's not how I see it. That's not how I want it to go. So, you said, what is respect? It's value.
It is.
It's worth.
It is. It is.
Honor.
Yes, it is. Because guess what? If your daughter wasn't respected, if you weren't respected, if I wasn't respected, we'd be the first to jump out of the gate screaming how we're disvalued, how we're dishonored, how we're not heard, because our physical body is triggered by that emotion to release, because in the past we were not valued, we were not honored, we were not respected. So now that we are getting good at respecting boundaries, it's music.
It's music. Oh my gosh, this is so big. So I do have clients, as I know you do as well, who really suffer from this. I mean, I could start going down a list, not that I would, but I could start going down a list of how much some women and some men, of course, but in these cases, the people coming to my mind are clients who are women from the past or whatever, maybe even friends, maybe even acquaintances I know. Oh my gosh, I don't really want to say the details of that, but I just, somebody who's so worried about the other partner at the expense of herself, because the other partner is basically in addiction. Addiction is narcissistic, and doesn't really care and is boundaryless, just overflowing totally no boundaries. And she, I guess maybe if you say, according to what we're discussing, doesn't respect herself. And this is hard. Don't get me wrong. I didn't say this was easy. I'm not judging. I'm not criticizing. We're kind of just saying when we can't respect ourselves, then we subject ourselves to other boundaryless people.
Well, if you can't respect yourself, how do you expect someone else to respect you? I mean, really, this is the reason why I say the most important relationship you have is with yourself. If you have a healthy self relationship, you're going to bring that healthy that healthy relationship to everyone that you relate with. But if you can't respect yourself, because that's where it begins. And sometimes, you know, when you're in a partnership, like where you've been in a toxic relationship where the partner has been disrespecting you for a long time and you've been allowing it for a long time, then to try to flip that program is hard, because where does it have to begin? It has to begin with you respecting yourself. And then what? Communicating those boundaries to your partner. That's when the relationship then changes. He will then either get on board with your new respected self because you demanded, because you commanded, or he's going to go in another direction where he can continue on disrespecting others.
And that is, oh gosh, that really is just so the case. Now let's go to this place based on what you just said. You might have been in a long relationship or partnership. By the way, in another client conversation, it came up that someone the client knew was in a business partnership. It wasn't a romantic relationship, but it was a business partnership. And that person was clearly in boundaryless with that business partner. That business partner did this and that and the other thing. And the first partner felt like she was in control, but all you had to do was hear the stories to be like, there's no boundaries here and you're being subjected to this. So whether it's that long-term relationship or part of business or whatever partnership, how do you begin to really move into a new paradigm of self? Actually, I think maybe I will have this conversation with my daughters. What was this? Like, how did you do that? But for our conversation today, how do we begin to move into this other way of being if perhaps we weren't taught it or we lived in the contrast all that time?
Let's just say you're being disrespected at work. Let's just say, let's not even think about it with another client or anything like that. Yeah. Let's just say you're being disrespected at work and it's really triggering you. And they're not listening to you. They're devaluing you and you're feeling disrespected. And you want that to stop. You don't necessarily want to quit your job, but you want that to stop. Well, first you have to go into your own inner journal and acknowledge those feelings to yourself that you are tired of being disrespected and that you want to be done with that. And then when I'm saying you're tired of being disrespected, meaning that the job is showing that to you so that you can see it. So that where do you need to stand up and be the advocate for yourself so that, you put down a new law of the land, basically you standing up for yourself and saying, where can I show up now that I see it? And once you release the energy, because you want to release the emotional charge around it, like, I feel a victim, I feel disrespected, I feel dishonored, I don't feel heard, I don't feel valued, I don't feel appreciated, all that, releasing all of that, and then coming back and say, what do you want? And what you do want is, I want to be respected, I want to be heard, and I want to be honored, and I don't want to be dismissed, or whatever the feelings may be, right? Mm-hmm. So then you go back to your job and you speak to the boss and you communicate your boundaries clearly. when that comes across again, because it's going to give you the opportunity to stand in it and protect yourself and defend yourself. Not defend, but stand up for yourself. That's the word I want to use. Stand up for yourself. And basically, you're just going to be saying, no, that doesn't work for me anymore. Please don't talk to me that way. That's not okay, because I feel disrespected here. And that's not going to work. So you can slowly and gently, but firmly start saying that. Sometimes things can shift into place really good, simply because, oh, you're speaking it out now. It's kind of like, if you don't discipline the dogs, they're going to run all over the place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. And so what do you need to do? You just need to communicate, like, what is tolerable and what is not.
So the prescription is, number one, you need to go into yourself. You said the words inner journal, which was cool. You need to go into your inner self and acknowledge, I'm tired of being disrespected and I want it to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's work there. There's work there. You've done the work. I've done the work. You do the work. I do the work. We continue to do the work. There's work there. So there's work there. And then in that work, you are, the result of that is releasing the energy, the captured energy, and the emotional charge around it. You get pissed off, like I feel this, I feel that, so you release that. You release that as part of step one, such that you begin to come more down into confidence, more down into, conscious calm, more down to feel comfortable in your skin and in charge of yourself. Then the second thing is, the second step, now that I see it, I ask myself, what do I want? How do I want to be respected? Or what do I want? I want to be respected. I want to be heard. I want to be honored. I want to be valued. And you've done the I am work, Kornelia. You teach the I am work. I teach it as well, which is to, you move from the I want to be to the I am respected. I am heard. I am honored. I am valued. That's the second step. And then there's work to do there. Commitment, deep desire, transformation. And then the third part of the prescription is this: communicate with the person your boundaries. Please do not speak to me that way. Please do not do that. Or I asked you to please do this, whatever it might be. So the third step is communicate. This is a rough one, Kornelia. In the case of my daughters, it's like, I remember when this started happening, they started communicating, or sometimes actually non-communication is a way of setting a boundary too. But in this prescription, go ahead.
Yeah, but if the non-communication, is probably like if they're ignoring you or ignoring and not saying anything, that's really
like passive aggressive.
It is. It's like kind of like, they're not wanting to speak to it, rather than, put your big girl pants on and speak it out, right? That's really what it is. Because here's the thing: once you release the charge, when you said releasing, get the anger out of the body from being disrespected, because you have, held that energy in the body for a long time and you want to release it out. So beat a pillow, run up the hill, whatever you need to do, get the anger out of the body, get it out and release it. Because once you release the energy of being disrespected out of the body, now there's no charge left there. So it's a lot easier to communicate than the third step when you do, simply because you don't have a hot coal that is burning in your stomach where you're shaking because you're afraid to communicate because you don't know how the person's going to respond by you saying that. But that's only because you've released the charge behind it. If you still have the charge, that's when it becomes hard because, oh, you got a fire burning in here and now you're like afraid you're going to explode. But once you release the charge first, that's why I said you release the charge first, then you go the next day or the day after and go, okay, what I'd like now is please don't speak to me that way. Just
now you're clear, you're non-emotional, you're not
you don't have a charge
explosive.
behind your voice.
Right. Oh God, this is so good. So this is the time when I say to people, our listeners and our viewers, play this back.
Yeah.
Get your own pen and paper. You know, I have mine. I'm already on the second side. I also have my yellow marker out, my highlighter already. I've highlighted, and I say, play this back. Listen to this prescription. Now, I'm here to say I have done the work. And you, of course, I know, have done the work and you've helped me with the work. That's why I'm sponsoring this podcast. That's why we're having this conversation. I want to say very clearly, this idea, it does take a little time. It's so contrary to what we experience and how we've grown. The idea that you could actually release the captured energy of feeling disrespected, that you could release the emotional charge around it, that you could get the anger out of your body such that you rise in neutrality, clear, easy, no problem here. Please do not speak to me that way. There's no charge in your voice. There's no, anger, yelling, rising, incendiary, stuff going on. Such that when you then communicate, that you're able to communicate in a calm, collected, cool way.
That's the reason why when I was at my parents' on Sunday, I was in neutrality. That's why I didn't get angry at the situation, simply because I was already in neutrality. I had communicated my boundaries already. Here's what I ask. Here's what I would like. And then when I got there, it was a completely different situation. But I could have gotten pissed.
Yeah.
But hey, like I said to you, I'm going to ruin my day if I get pissed. I don't want to get pissed. And so I was neutral. And then I was making the choices from that neutrality. Let that one go. Let that one go, for offering grace here. Let this slide. Let this slide. I'm not, now if this was a repeated thing over and over and over again, it's a whole different ball game. But right now, my parents, they're in a lot of grace with me just because they've had a tough time recently and a lot they're going through. So they're always going to get the grace first, no matter what.
So that now that's about your values. Right.
Yeah.
That's about being in your values, your value system, knowing your values and all of that. I think this conversation has been remarkable today. It's kind of very funny. If anybody listening wants to put themselves into the shoes of the mama as I am, I'm also the daughter, I'm also the sister, and I would say also, I definitely feel that my siblings and I have worked to bring in more boundaries in a comfortable way. And, we're better. We're not overly fantastic, but we're better in that way, whereby just because I have an opinion doesn't mean I have to give it to you. That's boundaryless, right? My opinion matters, but, or I did set a boundary with my mother early in the baby years where she could give me her, and my mother-in-law, both of them, I did actually set a boundary. You can give me your opinion on parenting, and then I either get to take it or not. But I will listen. That's my boundary. That's my offer. I will listen and respect your experience. And then the boundary agreement is I do or do not have to take your advice. And that did go very well for us. Thank God. I was so blessed and lucky with both my mother and my mother-in-law in that way.
I think that model right there is a model that we actually should be experiencing right now all over. That model with anything, with the division out there in the world between the left and the right, with people's different opinions where they are with certain things. To be able to listen to another person without taking it personal, first of all, being able to listen to their opinion, but not having to flip or what, that I have to take on your belief system, or I have to believe what you believe. That's an important way that we can, again, honor each other as humans coming together where we listen to each other again.
Yeah. So today we've had a prescription and we're offering a model. And I really love this, Kornelia. It's such a joy and a pleasure having these conversations on this podcast, Living Beyond the Core Wounds, to rise in like a healthy and well, emotionally balanced life. Not that we're not human, of course we are, and occasionally we regress or we fall. But when you have the tools, when you have the prescription, when you have the modeling, then you can rise more quickly. So how can people work with you, Kornelia?
You can go to my website at korneliastephanie.com. There is a contact page. You can email me at korneliastephanie.com. You can text me at 360-941-5783. Or you can look at the YouTube channel. Every single week, we put out so much content, sometimes up to 2 or 3 podcasts per week. So that's how.
That's fantastic. I can't say enough how much I encourage people to get in touch with you. Just this one idea. And, we've talked about this. I don't want to go on and on. I mean, it's just changed my life, this idea that you can release captured energy. You can release an emotional charge. What? What do you mean?
Yeah.
That's so good. I really, really encourage people to contact you, whether it's like a big problem, like I've had big trauma, or maybe it's a small slice of a situation. Kornelia is here to help you. So my friend, another fantastic episode. I'm already looking forward to the next conversation that we have. As always, thank you so much for being here.
Susan, this was so good.
I know, it really was.
So good.
I love that. All right, friend, I'll see you soon.